Daily Words of God. The entirety of the work carried out over 6,000 years has gradually changed as different eras have come and gone. The shifts in this work have been based on the world's overall situation and on the developmental trends of humanity as a whole. The work of management has only gradually changed accordingly. It was not all planned out from the beginning of creation. Before the world was created, or very soon thereafter, Jehovah had not yet planned the first stage of work, that of law, the second stage of work, that of grace, or the third stage of work, that of conquest, in which he would first begin with some of the descendants of Moab, and through this conquer the entire universe. After creating the world, he never spoke these words, nor did he ever speak them after Moab. Indeed, prior to Lot, he never uttered them. All of God's work is done spontaneously. This is exactly how his entire 6,000-year work of management has developed. By no means had he, before creating the world, written out such a plan in the form of something like a summary chart for humanity's development. In God's work, he expresses what he is directly. He does not rack his brains to formulate a plan. Of course, quite a few prophets have spoken a great many prophecies, but it still cannot be said that God's work has always been one of precise planning. Those prophecies were made according to God's work at that time. All the work he does is the most actual work. He carries it out in accordance with the development of each era and bases it on how things change. For him, carrying out work is akin to suiting the medicine to the illness. While doing his work, he observes and continues his work according to his observations. In every stage of his work, God is capable of expressing his ample wisdom and ability. He reveals his abundant wisdom and authority according to the work of any particular age, and allows all of those people brought back by him during that age to see his entire disposition. He provides for people's needs in accordance with the work that needs to be done in each age, doing whatever work he should do. He supplies people with what they need based on the degree to which Satan has corrupted them. It is like how, when Jehovah initially created Adam and Eve, he did it to enable them to manifest God upon the earth, and so that they could bear God's witness among creation. However, Eve sinned after being tempted by the serpent, and Adam did the same. In the garden, they both ate the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Thus, Jehovah had additional work to perform on them. Seeing their nakedness, he covered their bodies with clothing made from animal hides. Afterward, he said to Adam, "Because you have listened to the voice of your wife, and have eaten of the tree, of which I commanded you, saying, 'You shall not eat of it,' cursed is the ground for your sake, till you return to the ground. For out of it were you taken, for dust you are, and to dust shall you return." To the woman he said, "I will greatly multiply your sorrow and your conception. In sorrow you shall bring forth children, and your desire shall be to your husband, and he shall rule over you." From then on, he banished them from the Garden of Eden and made them live outside of it, just as modern man now lives upon the earth. When God created man in the very beginning, it was not his plan to let man be tempted by the serpent after being created, and then to curse man and the serpent. He had not actually had such a plan. It was simply the way things developed that gave him new work to do among his creation. After Jehovah had carried out this work among Adam and Eve upon the earth, humanity continued to develop for several thousand years, until Jehovah saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And it repented Jehovah that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart. But Noah found grace in the eyes of Jehovah. At this time, Jehovah had more new work to do, for the humanity he had created had grown too sinful after being tempted by the serpent. Given these circumstances, among all of humanity, Jehovah selected Noah's family to be spared, and then he carried out his work of destroying the world with a flood. Humanity has continued to develop in this manner to this very day, growing increasingly corrupt. And when the time comes that human development reaches its pinnacle, it will spell humanity's end. From the very beginning, right up until the end of the world, the inside truth of his work has always been and always will be this way. It is the same as how people will be classed according to their kind. It is far from the case that each and every person is predestined in the very beginning to belong to a certain category. Rather, everyone is gradually categorized only after undergoing a process of development. In the end, anyone who cannot be brought complete salvation will be returned to their ancestors. None of God's work among humanity had already been prepared upon the creation of the world. Rather, it is the development of things that has allowed God to perform his work among humanity step by step, and in a more realistic and practical manner. For example, Jehovah God did not create the serpent in order to tempt the woman. That was not his specific plan, nor was it something that he had intentionally predestined. One could say that this was an unexpected occurrence. Thus, it was because of this that Jehovah expelled Adam and Eve from the Garden of Eden and vowed to never again create man. However, people only discover God's wisdom upon this foundation. It is just as I said earlier. I exercise my wisdom based upon Satan's plots. No matter how corrupt humanity grows or how the serpent tempts them, Jehovah still has his wisdom. As such, he has been engaged in new work ever since he created the world, and none of the steps of this work has ever been repeated. Satan has continuously put plots into motion. Humanity has constantly been corrupted by Satan, and Jehovah God has unceasingly carried out his wise work. He has never failed, nor has he ever stopped working, ever since the world was created. After humans were corrupted by Satan, he has kept working amongst them to defeat it, the enemy that was the source of their corruption. This battle has raged since the beginning and will continue until the world's end. In doing all this work, Jehovah God has not only allowed humans who have been corrupted by Satan to receive his great salvation, but also allowed them to see his wisdom almightiness, and authority. Furthermore, in the end, he will let them see his righteous disposition, punishing the wicked and rewarding the good. He has battled Satan to this very day and has never been defeated. This is because he is a wise God, and he exercises his wisdom based upon Satan's plots. Therefore, God not only makes everything in heaven submit to his authority, but he also has everything upon earth rest below his footstool. And not least, he makes the wicked who invade and harass humanity fall within his chastisement. The results of all this work are brought about because of his wisdom. He had never revealed his wisdom prior to the existence of humanity, for he had no enemies in heaven, upon earth, or anywhere in the entire universe, and there were no dark forces invading anything among nature. After the archangel betrayed him, he created humanity upon the earth, and it was because of humanity that he formally began his millennia-long war with Satan, the archangel, a war that grows more heated with every successive stage. His almightiness and wisdom are present in each of these stages. Only then has everything in heaven and upon earth witnessed God's wisdom, almightiness, and in particular, God's reality. He still carries out his work in the same realistic manner to this day. In addition, as he carries out his work, he also reveals his wisdom and almightiness. He allows you to see the inside truth of each stage of work, to see exactly how to explain God's almightiness, and moreover, to see a definitive explanation of God's reality.